Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies as always with today's Monday's Musings on the 13th of October 2025. Now try as I might, I'm still not quite at the point of having that polished look, whether that's my camera or my hair or the approach that I take to these videos, and I was feeling into that this morning in regards to the collective energy, and there is a temptation to want to domesticate what is coming through out of fear, out of need to control, out of getting confused with the importance of appearances externally and forgetting those that are of an internal nature. What I mean by this is the more animalistic Salka light within us that is returning, even though it may feel the opposite for some, particularly as we go into the winter months with the clocks changing over the next few weeks. Remembering that that is man-made calendars, man-made rhythm, man-made time. When we go into the darkness, whether that's shadow work, whether that's being held by the Great Mother, whether that's nurturing ourselves through self-care, whether that's embracing the parts of ourselves we may not have been ready to look at, when we embrace that energy rather than fight or assume that it means something bad, or, you know, even in society, not looking at the whole concept of aging and death alone and our own collective fear of that, but if we can embrace that energy, particularly this week and as we go through the veil by the end of the month, we will remember that that is where the light resides. And it won't come from external information. I will look into the energies this week for the sheer intention of how to best navigate them. But all answers must come from within. As we go into 2026, we are going to recognize, and many are recognizing it now, we are going to recognize more, not only how important the body is to bring forth any change, not only how vital we are to facilitate those shifts, but that we are the portal theirself to anything needing to be transformed. But that comes from honouring who we are. And this week, much as it may feel as if new energies are coming in, particularly galactic energies, particularly star-based energies or higher frequencies, they can get quite confusing or quite out there or quite intense all the time. We believe that they, it, whatever may come, is not of us. I'm not going to go into that kind of approach to this reading, but being very mindful. Everything that is occurring right now is a remembering within. It's not a download. It's not an initiation. It's not a transformation as such. It's not a change. It's a remembering from within. And then from there, looking at why we may feel as if we need to polish that. And that's where I feel my throat getting quite constricted. Really embracing any insecurities we may have of not feeling good enough, of not being aware of our own skills, our own value and our own worth. And that isn't about the external this week, and I cannot stress that enough. Over the next few weeks, months even, it's not about the external. No matter what happens on the global scale, it's not about the external. It's about how everything that is occurring is inviting us to open our vision to ourselves, to what is going on inside, to move through any processes. And less really is more as we go into the winter months. Awareness itself is key, but we must recognize that awareness or consciousness is a living entity as well, our own included. If we continue to try and restrict that, polish that, control that, domesticate that, over the next few weeks we may feel ungrounded, we may feel unrooted, we may feel uncertain. The irony is a lot of the uncertainties are in areas where we actually do know and may not want to face the truth that's within them for whatever reason. And there's no judgment there. You know, truth is so multifaceted, but when something has caused a misalignment within us, and that misalignment continues to go on until it becomes our own perceived truth, recognizing that may not be the case can be quite catastrophic to the systems. You know, I think back to times when people say about awakening or people waking up. Well, the truth of the matter is we're always going to sleep and we're always waking up and we're always growing in our awareness of ourselves and each other. But what happens normally is quite a shock to the system. And with that, it's the body's role to protect us. It's the body's job to keep us safe. And when we have a shock to the system, if we don't feel able to open ourselves up to what is being gifted to us or what is being remembered within us, that can cause a physical response and an emotional dissonance as well to whatever is occurring. So this week, really having compassion with everything that is happening, simply by remembering your own humanity, simply by remembering whatever goes on. And I cannot stress this enough, particularly in the spiritual realms and the circles at the moment, whatever is going on, whatever gifts within you are being heightened, whatever sensitivities are being expanded, whatever views and visions and memories are moving through you, they are moving through you because you are a physical person. Do not forget the practicality of being in a human body. And what that actually means is bring it into the everyday world. Bring it into your everyday life. As the years go on, there is the potential to recognize the sheer benefit of humanity, the sheer beauty of feeling things, the sheer wonder of physical embodiment, and how important that actually is to any creation. But we have to acknowledge that within ourselves first, right? So back to basics this week. Remember that this is a remembering. Whatever is going on is a remembering. And that may mean that when we look at things that are less than comfortable, we are being reminded of a truth beneath it. There's an opportunity there to seek beneath that, to find the light hidden within the shadows and the darkness we may not want to face, particularly in the next few weeks. There's also an ancestral memory rising. And much as I can feel that myself, it's very, very important to find your own path within that, to find the untrodden path. The whole point of ancestral healing isn't to continue the path before you that has been walked before you, but to bring what you bring to it. So over the next few months, really acknowledging your own worth, not only as a human, but within your lineage, is very, very important. And that may be, well, no, that will be the parts of you that have been different from your ancestors. They are needing to be added into this great cauldron of creativity that we're all working towards in 2026. What else was there? Back to basics. Okay, so chop wood, carry water, keep to a routine. So this morning, the information coming in, there's a lot of it. And I could end up down many, many pathways, but keeping to the intention, keeping to the routine, keeping to what works for you, and acknowledging how much it has actually worked for you. Some of the uncertainty that's going to come over the next few weeks is going to come from a lack of appreciation of where we've been. And when we don't see where we've been, when we can't lean into the reflections, no matter how uncomfortable around us, and see how far we've come, we repeat them. Again, that's not said with judgment, but being aware of that. We are in a time of completion. There's a great opportunity to not end cycles, but take them to the next level. But that comes through our reaction. And one of our first reactions is always based on how we see things. So if nothing is changing and nothing is shifting, maybe it's the perspective itself that you hold of that situation that needs to be slightly adapted, or at least been made aware of. And that does mean we are going to see things play out, particularly in regards to support systems that we may have around us, or ways of doing things and ways of being that don't work ancestrally, our own, societal, for them to play out, for them to finish whatever it is they've come here to teach us. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to realise or re-realise where their energy hasn't been empowering or empowered as an opportunity to bring it back home and seek other avenues now. And these avenues are nothing that we didn't know. So an example. Examples are key this week. How can I make this relevant to my life? And that's going to be key. How is this relevant to me right now in my present moment? Not just me, but all of us. How is this relevant to our everyday life? So an example, a lot over the last few weeks that is rising within me, being reminded and remembered within me, has to do with mediumship. Messages and healing and more psychic-like energy, which is my feminine energy, but is also very interconnected to witchcraft and magic and the dark feminine. I'm going to a talk on the history of witchcraft next week, and I'm also going to I'll put links to both of them. I'm also going to a Black Moon Lilith workshop the following, I think it's the following week. For me, at the moment, there's a re-embracing of the dark feminine that is trying to come to the surface. And I've been speaking to a few other friends and people, you know, when I did the market and things like that, and there's a deep fear around this energy. There's a deep fear around our ability to tap into the psyche. There's a deep fear around the more perceived dark feminine that is very inaccurate, and that is having quite an impact on our ability as women in particular to embrace a new way of doing things, because we're trying to polish something that is so vast and so beautiful and so wild. That's the reason I've chose the Wildwood Tarot actually to read for the energies this week, because the title here is Wherein Wisdom Resides, recognizing the animist view of life, ourselves included. Everything is alive, and if we can see that in all that we're experiencing, the good, the bad, the fugly, if we can see life in everything that we're experiencing and recognize how important that is and how much of a part of that we are, there's a big shift coming into 2026. Now, I have linked it to witchcraft, I've linked it to the feminine, I've linked it to sensuality, sexuality, kundalini, spirituality. The truth of the matter is it's life. It's life, it's creativity, it's the source of all inspiration, and that is being remembered within us. Now, that may come through with anger at the situations you find yourself in. That may come through with guilt or with shame for things that you haven't achieved that you wanted to. That may come through with joy or arousal or well, name the emotion. The key here is it will come through in emotions, because as we go into 2026, it has never been more important to see emotions, energy in motion, for the wild that they are, for the inspiration that they are, for the wisdom that they are, for the psyche that they are, for the collective that they are, for the individual consciousness that they are. Not to be polished, not to be perfected, not to be placated, but to be with in presence and to be appreciated. And then from there, we start to see ourselves as the vessel of these incredible elements, as the container, the portal of all of this potential. I remember reading a long time ago, it's kind of going off track, but I'll get onto the cards in a moment. A long time ago that I think it was Mary was the mother of all angels, and receiving this huge remembering that the angels, the energy that she was working with was her emotional wisdom, was the landscape, was the inspiration for any change, was creativity itself, and she was the mother of all of this. It's that energy that is returning. It's that knowing within us that is returning. And of course, when that happens, yes, we are going to be reminded of all the times that we, for whatever reason, were unable to be open and expressive with this creative source that runs through us. Anything else on that? There is more to come with the Mary energy and the being the mother of all angels. There is more to come with that. It's about creating with these energies. However, it feels quite important this week to figure out what something means to you, or to remember what something means to you first before delving into sharing it or gifting it away, giving it away before you've embodied it. We do live in a world where something, and I'm just as guilty, where something tends to happen and straight away there's a camera there, or we're filming it and we're sharing it, and you know, for whatever reason, to connect, to get likes, to get follows, to share. Ensuring that in doing so, this week in particular, we're not stripping ourselves from the process of what is occurring. It's really important to find time this week to be with what is moving through you, to take time and allow that completion within you first. I mean, it is as simple as watching your reaction. However, pulling that apart, why is it important? Why is it important that we're aware of our emotions? Why is it important that we are aware of our reaction? Why is it important that we feel these things? For the process, to know where we are, we have to feel through everything that we've gone through. Now, I'm not saying we reinitiate trauma. It's about recognizing that when we don't acknowledge where we are in the process, we are subconsciously reigniting trauma. When we slow down, we allow new information to come through. We allow a new cellular memory to come to the surface. But that does involve slowing down. That does involve looking at areas that we have tried to veneer over. I would say there are no quick fixes, but there's a big part of me that doesn't believe that anything needs to be fixed. But also being mindful of the information that's coming through, and what I'm getting is there are no quick fixes. So there are areas that need to be looked at. There are certain circumstances that need to be faced this week. Anything else on that? The moment we can acknowledge that, the moment we can be open to that, what we're looking for is going to be able to come closer. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else on that. I'm going to look into the energies this week. Feels quite important in the times of uncertainty to return to a routine and intention and structure that you have had. And that is, for me personally, to look at the energies this week and how to best navigate them. It's going to be a lot of information about other planets, galactic stuff coming in, lots and lots and lots of information, and it isn't anything that we don't know, but it's going to start sparking a remembrance within many people, and with that may come times linked to that remembrance that could be less than pleasant. That doesn't always have to be with galactic things as well. So you may have something that happens in your life that sparks a memory, for example, of when you've been let down before, okay, and that's going to come back up for you to be able to see how your reactions have changed or not, and where they may need to, in order to create something different. Now, I noticed today is World Novel Day, and yeah, it is really very much looking at the stories that we're writing, but even that, it's deeper than that now, guys. The connection, the potential, the possibility is so much deeper than that. The support is greater, the deeper we can go within ourselves. The more we can open up to things that we may have perhaps hidden from ourselves for whatever reason, and let go of the desire to control what we're feeling. Because control is still a reaction. So we may think that we're breathing through something, that we're changing how we would normally react, but we could ultimately be controlling the fact that it just needs to be felt. We may be making it more complicated than it needs to be this week. And that's why it's really important just to take time out, to take care of your body for the vessel that it is. Okay. And everything that I want to talk about or feel like I need to talk about is very, at the moment, very repetitive. I can feel as if it's to fill in the gaps, and I can feel that it's very ego driven. So be mindful of that this week. Let go of what you think you're here to share. Open yourself up. So this weekend at the market, I'd planned to do healings, as always, by donation, and the lady that I worked with got inundated with readings, and there was quite a long line, and I'll put her details underneath as well. So I took over and did some of the readings, and some of them, like I say, were mediumistic, which isn't, those that have readings with me, isn't something I normally do. It's something I've tried to control since I was a child, and I ended up doing readings instead of healing, straight over a drain by our local water, doing lots of healing for the water as well, but straight over a drain. Okay, yeah. Just being open to what was being asked of me, things started to shift and move. And we're not going to get that if we keep going over the same energy. If anything, it can drain us, right? If anything, when we keep repeating the same story, it just solidifies the doubt more than the innate knowing. Really recognizing what you are feeding this week. I said feeding, but feeling, and that's the key. What are you feeling? So the card that came out is the Nine of Vessels, which is generosity, and I need to double check. I think the deck itself may be upside down. No, it isn't. Okay, so the deck itself isn't upside down. So even though it may feel as if the perspective around you is skew, it isn't. Actually, this week it is our view of it. So the Nine of Cups here, the generosity, this character is upside down. Everything's flowing out, which is wonderful. His head is on the ground. It's total, if you like, total embodiment of Pachacuti, the world turned upside down. That is where we're at, and it's going to be in full flow this week. You know, what you thought you knew about yourself, what you thought you knew about your circumstances, are going to be completely turned upside down. Underneath it all, we have the Page of Stones, or the links, and that too is upside down. Okay, so really recognizing that grounding that comes from controlled certainty isn't grounding, it's control. Really acknowledging that this week. How generous are we being with our gifts and with who we are? All the time we are seeing things the same way. How can anything shift or move from that? We can become this. There's a great difference between comfort and grounding. A great difference. Okay, and underneath I'm going to just do that one card as well. We have the Stag, which in this deck is actually justice. Okay, so it's not the Strength card as such, it's justice in this deck. So it's that balance. That balance comes from finding your own rhythm regardless of the circumstances, or at least recognizing that you have. At least acknowledging throughout your life, no matter what has happened, you have found your own truth within everything that is occurring. That's not to say just because you've changed that the past wasn't your truth. It was your truth then. Truth is multifaceted, and that feels like key this week. That feels like the biggest theme. Acknowledging what our own truth is simply being aware of who we are in every moment. I would say without the judgment, but even judgment is part of who we are in that moment. So being mindful that yes, you may have grown or you may wish to grow, but that doesn't mean that you're not in your truth in this moment. Whether that's the fear, the joy, the guilt, the shame, whatever you're feeling is still part of your truth. That is the first step to any change or rebalance. I know we like to live in a world where we think we can be in harmony at all times, but you know, sometimes we don't know what harmony is until we're out of it. And we are a constant swinging pendulum, just like the medicine wheel. We're going to really find that next year. What goes up comes down. The further down we can go, the more roots we will get, the higher we can go up. It's all part of the process. So too is being aligned and then being knocked out of alignment by life. We get affected by life. That's life. That's the whole beauty of the sheer fact that we're all interconnected. We all feel, we all think, we all have ambition, we all have drive, we all have secrets, we all have darkness, we all have light, we all have seasons. We will get affected by life. We're not supposed to not get affected by life, because that's an opportunity to come back to who we are and bring that to the situation. It's like that is it Newton's ladder? I can't remember, the ornament that you tap and it just knocks into each other. That's life. Okay, so it's not about being calm and peaceful throughout life, as in not feeling anything, but acknowledging that your feelings, that animist view, your feelings, your thoughts, your desires, your drives, your fears, all of these are alive. They are a consciousness in their own right. Being mindful of which one you're giving life to, the only way to do that is to recognize what you're feeling, to recognize how grounded you are, to recognize how embodied you are, how present you are in that moment. Sometimes life shows us where we're not, as an opportunity to reinstill that. Okay, we then underneath have the Knight of Arrows, or the Knight of Swords, which is the hawk. It is about being the bigger perspective. No, yes, it is about being the bigger perspective. Underneath we have the 10 of Stones, or the 10 of Pentacles, and home. I'm going to show this one because it reminds me, okay, we're just going to keep going. I'm going to show this one because it reminds me of Butser Hill. Now, Butser Hill is an area near me that is very Neolithic type energy, and that's what's coming back. That's what's returning, even though it can feel way out there, even though it can feel like it's, and I feel that in my root chakra, even though it can feel like it's really high energy and really galactic energy and really Egyptian energy, and we're talking Atlantean energy, and we're talking these real high frequency vibrations. It's not. It's an ancient knowing that humanity has always had, but for whatever reason hasn't been able to connect to, or have repressed for fear of control. Whether that's witchcraft trials, whether that's the Trail of Tears, whether that's throughout society, beliefs and ways of being that have been colonized, or whatever view you want to take of that. It's all about finding the abundance of coming home to who you are as we go over the next few weeks and months, seeing ourselves for the bigger perspective, because then we can start to shift things. Underneath you have the pole star, the star card, and yes, you can see on this card this character is about to walk into the woods of the unknown, and it can feel dark. And it can feel uncertain, and it can feel downright spooky at times. All the time we forget who we are. All the time we forget that it is our own awareness that is guiding us. It is our own consciousness that is encouraging us to keep stepping within. It is our own darkness that we are fearing. Underneath it all, you have the whole point of this year, which is the Hermit, the hooded man. The light that can be found within that. So this character is already in the woods. The light that can be found within that journey. And the Green Woman. I'm just going to keep going through the pack. The Empress, the cauldron that is being initiated within us all. This awareness of creativity that runs through us. These emotions, this psyche, this water. You know, we talk about water being the source of all life. And it is. And it's within us. Most of us are made... we are mainly made up of water, okay? And that gives everything life. Water is our emotions as well. It's going to be, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's going to be the very flow that creates the change of next year. Now it's an opportunity to really look at what we are holding within us. Not the emotions themselves, feel that, but the view of them. The view of the feminine, the view of our intuition, the view of the psyche, the view of the darkness, the shadows. What are we creating with based on how we see all of that and ourselves within it? And underneath that is where we have the Seven of Pentacles, a beautiful, beautiful card of healing. In this deck, it's everywhere else. In all the other decks, the Seven of Pentacles can be linked to depletion or growth. In this deck, it's linked to healing. When we grow, we heal. When we feel depleted, it's an opportunity to heal. Whatever is happening outside of us, particularly with the 7 being endurance, it is an invitation to restore balance. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're using tuning forks or tarot or massage or angelic healing or Reiki or crystal healing or Atlantean healing or spiritual healing. You know, trust me, I do all of them. It doesn't matter what modality connects you. Those energies are here to restore balance. We live in a world where recreation is seen as a luxury, where feeling at peace with where we are, not the circumstances, at peace with where we are, having acceptance and allowance to feel what we feel, to take care of our body, to be connected to ourselves, is seen as either a spiritual thing or something you go to a class to do for an hour. This is an ongoing way of living that we must, as a society, start to recognize as our norm. The fight or flight we find ourselves in collectively is not our normal rhythm. We talk about the patriarchy collapsing and old paradigms collapsing. One of the biggest ways we can help that is to find our own natural rhythm and remember as much as we can. It's like a muscle, so it's going to take some training. Remember as much as we can that stillness, that connection, that wisdom from within is as old as time itself for us, and that's what we bring to the table. This isn't a treat. This isn't a self-care package that you get over a few months. This is a way of being. How can we bring that into our life? I can't stress it enough. It's not about being placated. It's not about observing and not being part of. It's about acknowledging our own truth. When we are in harmony, that energy that we bring to anything, ourselves included, that's healing. It isn't that you're broken. It isn't that we need fixing. We need to remember. It's as simple as that. Okay, so energies this week and how to best navigate them. Underneath it all, we have the 6 of bows, or the 6 of wands, abundance, but it's upside down. Remembering, it doesn't matter how much you earn, doesn't matter how much you own, doesn't matter how much you learn, doesn't matter how many likes or follows you get or any of that. Remembering your own light, is the most abundant thing you can do. It is the most beneficial thing you can bring to any situation. Your authenticity is the key to everything. You know, I read the cards, I read stones, I read leaves, I read whatever is put in front of me, but I cannot do it without knowing where I am first. Take that time. Go within. Find your truth. Pause. Breathe. It doesn't have to be an hour-long class. It doesn't have to be, a year-long mentorship. It can be a breath. Breathe in, but breathe out longer than you breathe in. Breathe with your belly. Take a moment and listen. Really listen. Okay, so energies this week, how to best navigate them. I've just realised they were, it is skew-if. Okay, they were upside down. Monday, Tuesday, wow, Wednesday, gosh, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, yeah. Okay, so overall we have the Ace of Bows, or the Ace of Wands, and it's the spark of life, and it's upright. Grab your victories where you can. It's upright, it's clear. I know what this one is. Grab your victories where you can, and your certainties where you can. We can choose to focus on what we don't know, or we can choose to really emphasize what we do know. One of the things that came through for me this week is that exact same thing, recognizing where we're giving more life to things that now want to die, or to be ended or completed, rather than giving life or breathing our energy into something different, not something different, the other side of that. So when we give life or use our energy to create the outcome of the lesson rather than the lesson itself, then the lesson itself takes on more fuller embodiment and healing. With that, you get the medicine of it. So it's not about working against the things that you have experienced, working with them to create something different. So if you find things coming up of a repetitive nature, it's not about fighting them. I see you, I remember you, and that makes me feel quite emotional. I know when you have come up in my life all of these times, and I have remembered how I react and all I have learned about that, about myself. How can we create something different now? It's going to bring a new spark to a lot of, so as we go into the Libra new moon, I think it's around about the 21st, I think 21st, 22nd, as we go into the Libra new moon, it's not about creating new goals. It's about giving those goals that we had a different energy, a new initiation, not initiation, inspiration of spark. So inspiration, where can I get the spark from? Where can I see what is going on differently? An example, yesterday, I'm getting 2 kittens this weekend, and I've opened my heart to these kittens, and now I want dogs as well, and horses, and you know, I've reignited that spark of being around animals, and it's not a potential at the moment, but that yearning has made me start to open myself up to how it could be a potential. What do I actually need? And to work with the animals that I'm going to be caring for in the future to build that now. So you can focus on what you don't have, you can focus on what you can't do, or you can allow that to spark some different answers within you. Chances are they actually won't be any different, it's just your perspective of them will be. The energy that you can give them will be changed. On the Monday, we do have the Death card. I'm not surprised to see that, but to recognise that death itself is a journey, that completion itself is a journey. This year is the 9 year, but it's completion. It's not, it's integration, it's not endings, it's completion. So it's not about creating the change this year. It never was. It was about finding the bits that we had forgotten in the darkness that we didn't want to face about situations that could help us start to complete that change as we go into the year of the 10, which is next year. It was about the journey. It was about everything that we had discovered. And the truth of the matter is, endings are, if we allow them to be. If we can pause that small transitionary space between what was and what could be in every moment, if we can pause and see what we have gained, what we have experienced, what we have learned, the very journey of death itself, then we create something different. We view death differently. We view the dark feminine differently. We view darkness differently. No longer are we afraid of that season of life. We recognize it for the power that it is. When you think of the Death card doesn't listen to whether it's an innocent energy. It doesn't listen to whether it's a rich energy. It doesn't listen to whether it's a begging energy. Death is very focused and death keeps going. It's not personal, it's purposeful. Now, that is the potential we have next year, but we must acknowledge the wisdom of death, the wisdom of completion that can only be found in the parts of it we might not want to go and venture into. On the Monday, by looking at what we're picking at the bones of, this morning I shared a post about picking at the bones of our insecurities or picking at the bones of our innate wisdom. We can, again, feed from what we don't know, feed from low worth, because that's what it is. When we feed from what we don't know, when we focus on what we don't have, or focus on the I'm not talking about bypassing, but focus on the things that we can't do, it just continues to really feed the low worth that we have about ourselves. It's not empowering, and it's most definitely not the energy of death. Death can be a very empowering vibration if we are to embody any kind of change. And on the Tuesday, that's the potential. We have the Fool, we have the Wanderer. This is the creature that was walking into the woods with the Star card, yeah? Is walking across the Rainbow Bridge here. We are seeing more and more people that are crossing over. This last few weeks, particularly, I've found women of a certain class, of a certain simplicity, of a certain comedic nature, sensual nature, creative type energy that is now crossing over, that is guiding those steps forward now. So on the Tuesday, really feeling into the many different shades of us that can help us move through the uncertainty. So here we have clouds. There's a lot of fog. There's a lot of, on the Tuesday, a lot of lack of direction or perceived lack of direction. But if we allow our emotions to guide us, if we allow our psyche to move us through what we think we don't know, come the Wednesday, we're going to come face to face with what it is we've actually been avoiding in the face of the Guardian. So the first 3 days we have 3 major arcanas. We have Death, the Fool and the Devil. Come the Wednesday, we're going to come face to face. This is the bones of the Great Bear. This is the bones of the Great Mother, of the Great Protector. This is where we come and acknowledge. I'm going to say it again, face to face. That feels really important. Face to face with what we have been protecting all along, with what we have been avoiding in our actions all along, the structures that have kept us the way that we are. Not to berate ourselves, not for judgment, but to bring forth the light that we are now ready to receive, should we choose to. And that's the wisdom of the Devil, should we choose to. Do we dare to? Do we want to move beyond where we are now? The latter half of the week is all minor arcanas, and the latter half of the week is all upside down. So all the major arcanas, all the turns of fate are very direct this week. Come midweek, that is going to make our reactions feel a little bit discombobulated. It's almost as if the buck stops with us, or it can feel that way. It isn't the case. We have the Knight of Vessels here, the eel, all to do with our emotions. It can feel quite slippery. It can feel quite untangible. It can feel quite scary, actually, quite emotional or emotive this week, particularly by the latter half of it. However, it's an opportunity again to see our feelings and senses for the navigation that they can bring us, and it is going to take us somewhere different because we're seeing it different. On the Friday, we have the Four of Bows, and it's a celebration card, but it's upside down. So we may find on the Friday that what we once thought we wanted as a result of being in tune with our emotions, as a result of ending something, you know, no longer feeding from things that we don't, taking on a new journey, looking at the things we've been avoiding, we may find come the Friday that what we once wanted, we don't. That it was an opportunity to figure out who we were, and from there decide what we want. And it could very well be what we've celebrated all along, or what we needed to celebrate all along. That feels like key. What we have perhaps taken for granted that now needs more of our attention on the Friday. On the Saturday, we have the Eight of Arrows, and it's the struggle card, but again, it's reversed. Recognizing the struggles that aren't struggles, recognizing the endurances that we have placed on ourselves, particularly mentally, because we haven't been able to see our potential. Because we have kept ourselves small, because we have been so frightened of what it would mean to stand in our own light, not stand in our own light, not prove our own light to others, but just simply to allow our own light to guide us, just simply to allow our emotions, our drive, our spirituality, our soul to guide us. It's not about berating yourself on the Saturday. It's not about thinking, well, I should have done this and I should have done that. It's not about that. If anything, that's going to add to the struggles. It's just about seeing it. It's about having compassion where you may have made your life difficult because of the views that you were unable to receive at that point, or where you may still be making your life difficult because of the unwillingness to see yourself from a different angle. On the Sunday, we then have the King of Vessels, the Heron, upside down, the King of Cups upside down, and this card is upside down. It doesn't feel as if it's a time to bring in anything new, even though, you know, with the Death card at the beginning of the week, and the Fool and the Devil, and even though we may feel as if struggles are getting harder, or there's nothing to really tangibly celebrate, or we don't feel as if we've moved forward, or things have ended in the way that we would like, or we haven't got the outcome that we wanted, it doesn't mean that it's a time for a new birth until we can sit with all of that, until we can be with all of that and allow that simply to shift our own perspective of what we're feeling. I'm not a person that will say that things happen for a reason over emotional experiences. But this week, recognizing our emotional experiences may be showing us, or trying to show us, what we could have potentially gained from what is happening, and where we may be fighting that. And then the lack of certainty that comes through as a result in our own ability to be with anything that we face, in our own ability to be grounded in the truth of who we are. Oh, underneath it all, we have the Archer, just poking itself out. Don't get too wrapped up in some of the stuff this week, because underneath that we have the Three of Arrows, which is jealousy, and the Oak. There has to come a point where we realise, I'm going to show you these two. The heart here has arrows in, and the heart is broken and bleeding from jealousy. But the card, the Chariot, the Archer, is the one that's shooting the arrows. There has to come a point where we recognise that our view, what we aim for, what we allow ourselves to feel or not feel, could be what is causing the jealousy, could be what is causing the pain and the heartbreak and the separation. There comes a time where we recognise that it is our ego that can actually cause the split, the soul loss, the pain, the transformation, the potential, the completion, the change. You can see here in the Three of Swords that that heart is on fire. So many of us are used to creating from heartbreak. So many of us are used to creating from loss. So many of us are used to creating from lack, from scarcity, from fight or flight, from hunger, from soul hunger. This week is an opportunity to either celebrate that and really stand in it, so that when you face adversity, you know it's an opportunity to deliver something different. Or if that doesn't work for you, if this way of change doesn't work for you, recognizing that it doesn't work and bringing in something different. So let's have a card for the energies this week. I'm going to turn them also all upside down. This week there were a lot of readings with the cards that were upside down, and once the information had been shared, the people that I were reading for were given the option to turn the cards up the right way. It's interesting, Swan. I've been seeing a lot of swans lately. It seems to be a totem of mine, so I must look her up. In this, she's the Queen of Arrows. The individuals were given the option to turn the cards up the right way, and in doing so, acknowledging that they were agreeing to shift their own perspective of that energy. Overall this week, if you take anything from this reading, that is the offering. It is an opportunity to look at whether or not we are willing to shift how we see something, so that we can bring forward the healing that is available. Okay, one card overall. Don't overthink it. If we get too tempted to overthink it or to get too caught up in the higher spiritual vibrations this week without the human context, the physical, practical realms of being in this body, you can expect headaches, you can expect the need for caffeine, you can expect feeling tired, you can expect to feel drained, you can expect to feel unclear, because the human body, the human self, has to have a say in this now. And that comes from your emotions, that comes from the feelings, that comes from what we are capable of on a very mundane, for some level, but that needs to be acknowledged and accepted. This morning, before I started to do the reading, I noticed that there was a tiredness in the air, and there was a knee-jerk reaction to want to keep pushing through that, or to even rest with that and stop with that. It's not about taking this recreational, this recreational energy, this harmony and this balance, and fighting it or giving up with it. It's about acknowledging this is our normal energy and bringing that into whatever we face. Lean into any tiredness for the feminine. Lean into any uncertainty for an opportunity to open your psyche. Lean into your emotions for an invitation to find the answers that you're seeking. Allow yourself to be held by your own soul's wisdom. Underneath we have the Page of Vessels, we have the Otter. Okay, I'm going to turn that card up the right way, which is Seven of Arrows, Insecurity. Underneath it all we have the Otter, allowing that stream of consciousness to move you. Recognize it's your stream of consciousness and you're not outside of it. You know, the otter is standing on the side watching everything go by as if it has no choice. But actually it's the otter and the beavers that control that flow. When they build dams, you know, they control the flow. You control the flow of what is coming through. Lean into that wisdom because it's you. Take care, and I shall see you next week.